algo ilógico que la policía está apoyando eso, lo que está pasando ahora en estos momentos. No hay comida, no hay nada. El internet lo tienen que poner, porque es una herramienta.
Creo que no hay internet para que las personas no vean lo que han pasado en el país.
More police on the streets, limited internet access on the island of Cuba, making it harder for protesters there to voice their complaints. The Associated Press reporting that as of yesterday, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and Telegram access were all still blocked. NBC News' Ed Augustin is in Havana with the latest. Ed, what are you seeing there today? What's going on?
Well, today, in contrast to Sunday, where there were mass demonstrations across the country, both for and against the government, today and yesterday have been days of tense calm. The internet has been cut for the vast majority of Cubans. Nobody that I know can get mobile internet on their phone. I'm one of the privileged ones. I'm in an office and I've got a DSL connection. So people are getting used to life without internet and really just waiting it out. We're expecting potentially bigger protests in the coming this weekend, and there's rumours, unconfirmed reports, that there have been pockets of protests throughout Havana's outside regions today.
So, Ed, what's the Cuban government saying about the protests and the situation in Cuba overall? I mean, we're hearing from people that they simply cannot afford to eat or to live.
It's certainly true that Cubans are living through very, very difficult times. And it's certainly true that a great many, millions of Cubans eat very, very badly. Malnutrition is a problem in parts of Cuba. Quite frankly, in at least Havana, I am not aware of anyone who's hungry in the scientific nutritional term in the way it's used. But there are massive problems in terms of queuing up for hours, 8-10 hours on end to buy a litre of cooking oil, queuing up for a very long time to get a bit of minced meat or chicken, and very scant vegetables. What the government is saying is that they're putting the blame firmly on the United States. They're calling this fourth-generation warfare, a destabilization campaign, and they're being very simplistic. They're saying that this has all been organized from the United States, and that all of the protesters, thousands of protesters, are all marionettes, puppets of the United States.
So let's talk about the U.S. here. President Biden promised back on the campaign trail to reverse President Trump's crackdown on Cuba and return to the Obama-era policy of more engagement. The situation there really forcing his hand.
Yeah, and earlier today, White House spokesman Ned Price talked about the centrality of human rights in the Biden administration's policy towards Cuba.
Our review is taking a broad look at what we can do to support the core principles at the center of our policy, and that is democracy and human rights. We are always considering options available to us that would allow us to support the Cuban people, to support their humanitarian needs, which are indeed profound. And they are profound because of not anything the United States has done, but from the actions and inactions, mismanagement, corruption of the Cuban regime.
So it's true that there is corruption in Cuba, and it's true that the state planning economy is very efficient. It misfires, it malfunctions. But one important thing that spokesman Price said is false. By any objective analysis, the US sanctions on Cuba undermine the human rights of Cubans. And they do it in a very, very simple way. The Trump administration exercised its power to put in place over 200 sanctions. Every one of those sanctions was aimed at cutting the amount of hard currency the government, or the regime, if you prefer, has. Now, some of that money goes to those at the top. Some of that money is spent on police and military. But far more money is spent on things like schools, petrol to keep the power on, medicines, and, of course, food. So it's a 2 + 2 = 4 situation. The main driver, as well as the pandemic, for the hardship that Cubans are living for are US sanctions. And President Biden has a decision to make. His hand has been forced. Is he going to prioritize domestic politics, winning that all-important Cuban-American vote in South Florida? Or is he really going to put human rights and the right of Cubans to have food and medicine at the heart of his foreign policy for Latin America.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.